So my name is Lia. I'm one of the organizers of Civic Tech Toronto, and I also work for a nonprofit called Urban and Digital. And as part of both of those things, I'm here to talk about the Youth Employment Challenge. And before I do that, I'm curious, who's here because they heard about the Youth Employment Challenge and they wanted to come for that? A few people. Okay. Who is here and has no idea, is a long-standing civic tech person and doesn't know about the Youth Employment Challenge? Okay, good. Okay, so we'll cover everything. This is funny because I can see myself being recorded right now. That's a little weird. If you could go to that slide. So the Youth Employment Challenge is something that's really exciting for this community, I think, because there's a few firsts happening here. It's the first time that a government agency is coming to this community and asking to collaborate. It's really exciting to see that government is seeing the value in the work that's happening here and everything that all of you do every week. So we're really excited that that's happening, and we're also excited that that is happening with some cash involved. So it's the first time that we're able to offer financial incentives for people doing this work, the total financial incentives are $3,000. So we're really excited about both of those things, and both of those things are really new. So this is really kind of an experiment to see how this goes, and we're hoping to learn a lot from doing this and create some great stuff. But it's both about creating that great stuff and learning a lot for ourselves, learning a lot for the government, and learning a lot about how we can collaborate better with projects like this. So I already sort of mentioned this. The project is sponsored by the federal government, specifically Employment and Social Development Canada, administered by Urban and Digital, a nonprofit that is also a steward of Civic Tech nonprofit, Civic Tech Toronto, making sure everything goes smoothly, and of course hosted by Civic Tech Toronto, which is why we're here now. Just do this awkwardly every time I can change the slide. As I sort of mentioned, this is really about learning for everybody involved. So we're focusing on process and not necessarily product. That doesn't mean that we're not trying to create awesome things, but it just means that we're not expecting the outcomes of the projects to be shiny, perfectly ready for public consumption projects. It's really about creating prototypes that we can learn from the process of creating them. And that's my awkward point. The other thing that's a little bit different from typical hackathons that you might have participated in before is that we're running it in a non-competitive way, which is to say that every team that meets a certain group of criteria will share in the award money. So there's not going to be first prize, second prize, that sort of thing. It's just everybody who kind of meets this bar is going to share in the so this is the question that we're hoping that this challenge will address, and this is the question, or the topic area that was brought to us by government. So this is part of the collaboration. This is a topic area that they'd really like to see a community like this work on. So the question that we're posing to frame this challenge is: how might civic tech contribute to improving youth employment in Canada? That's a pretty broad topic. So. To be clear, youth employment can include many things, or improving youth employment can include many things. Obviously, youth getting jobs, that's an improvement in youth employment, but also job readiness, employability, knowledge and understanding of the job market, making more informed education decisions, making sure that education decisions match up with the labor market, and of course lots of other things, which is to say that you guys have probably an intuitive sense of things that are good for youth employment, and if you have a project in mind that you think is good for youth employment and it doesn't specifically address one of these things, that's totally cool and totally fine. And further to this idea of project scoping, typically governments and social service providers define youth as between 15 and 29, but we recognize that this isn't to say that a project that's going to be good for someone who's 28 isn't also going to benefit someone who's 31 or 32 or 50 maybe for that matter. 50 is probably not. Anyway, sorry. You should define youth as it makes sense to you and in the way that makes sense to you, with this in mind, that a lot of government agencies define it this way. And you should further keep in mind Oh, that was two.
Oh no.
Okay. Okay. That it might be easy. It might make the project kind of easier to approach if you wanted to focus on a specific area of youth employment rather than just thinking about youth employment generally in Canada. So further to that idea, there are some kind of subsections of youth that tend to be particularly disadvantaged in the job market. For example, Indigenous youth, racialized and newcomer youth, youth living in poverty, youth in and leaving care, LGBTQ youth, and youth with disabilities and special needs. Again, this isn't to prescribe that these are the categories that you need to think about, but it's one way to get you thinking about how you might slice and dice the problem framing further. So that's a kind of general high-level look at what we're doing, and I wanted to also provide some examples of types of projects that have happened elsewhere or are ongoing elsewhere that kind of fit into this mold for some inspiration and excitement about this topic. I'm also going to check how much time I have. Okay, great. So these are a couple apps that have kind of tried to address youth employment elsewhere. So this is an app from the United States. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be pronounced learning or LRNG, but the no vowels thing seems to be a crucial thing. But it's an app that designs basically video playlists, like modules, aiming to help youth work on 21st century workforce competencies. And what's really interesting is that they have a kind of nationwide model in the States that's a general model, but they've also partnered with organizations in 12 specific cities to get specific local content on there as well. And by using this app, users can unlock badges, so it kind of gamifies this activity. And by unlocking badges, people are able to get access to really great employment-related opportunities. So, for example, internships, job shadowing, things like that with this app. So that's an example of kind of public-facing tech that would fall into this category. But there are other examples of less public-facing technology. So, for example, this is an example from Boston, where there had been for many, many years a program, to match Boston youth with summer employment. And the thing about this program was that it was very labor-intensive, requiring the staff of the program office to basically make tons of phone calls, knock on lots of doors, do a lot of paper moving around to match students up with employment opportunities. And the mayor at the time said, this is a really great program, and we needed to touch more youth in the city. And so Code for Boston, which is sort of like our equivalent group down there, partnered with several other organizations to do some co-creation of an internal piece of technology that would help the staff members from that government organization to basically increase their capacity and be able to reach many more youth. So this is all to say that whatever you create can be a public-facing app, like the first one I talked about. It can be sort of internal. There are many ways to think about this, and these are just two examples of ways that you can take this, but I'm sure that there's lots of creativity in this community, and there'll be lots of other interesting ideas. These are just a few. So that's the kind of background, and now we'll get into the details about how this actual challenge is going to work. So there are 5 steps for this challenge, or 5 stages, maybe I should say. And these, for people who have been involved in civic tech for a while, probably look very familiar, and who have done a lot of user-centered design. It'll probably look very familiar. Bear with me, because since this is a process-based challenge, it's really important that we talk through these steps. So the first step, of course, is to frame your problem. I should mention that in order to make these steps or stages as easy or as smooth to complete as possible, we've also designed some resource tools that will help teams get through these if you're unfamiliar with these stages. So of course, the first thing to do is to frame the problem. We've given you kind of this big, broad topic, and the first task is to figure out how you're going to slice and dice that to create a project yourself. developing an initial plan, figuring out who your users are. And this is a screenshot of the tool that we've created that will be available to everybody to help you get going with this process if this is a stage that you're unfamiliar with and is something that you haven't done before. So in all cases, for each step, we have this kind of a support tool, but if you're familiar with how to do any of these stages, you can do it however makes sense to you. So the next stage is user research, and anyone who's been around this community for a while probably knows that this is a really important thing, but we're really emphasizing that before you build anything, it's important to talk to the people who are going to be using it. So you're validating your ideas with potential users, getting feedback, and refining your concept. And again, we have a tool that will be available to anyone who's participating to help kickstart that phase if it's something that you're unfamiliar with. Then it's time to build a prototype, of course. It can be a digital prototype, but it can also be a physical prototype. It could be, wireframe diagrams. It can really be anything along the range of prototyping tools. What's really important is that you have something that you can test with your users to further kind of refine your idea. So a team could feasibly not have anyone who's a developer and still participate in this challenge. But like I said, it needs to be something that you can test with users. Again, a tool to help get through that stage. Following the prototype, there'll be a testing stage where you're taking the prototype, testing it with your users. It's pretty similar to the first user research stage, but just getting feedback on your prototype. And finally, you'll submit all of this great work. So this project will go for 6 weeks from now until November 29th. And there are a few criteria when you submit your work. It needs to be publicly available. It needs to be a Creative Commons or open source license. And it needs to document that research and testing. Now, really importantly, we've tried to make it as easy as possible to document your research and testing. So you don't have to come up with documentation out of whole cloth. We've created a template that basically, if you fill out the template, you will have ticked all the boxes and done all the things that you need to do to make sure that you've demonstrated that you've gone through all the stages of the challenge. Actually, sorry, I thought something else was next. And I think it's important to highlight that there are a lot of steps that we've talked about here, but it doesn't need to be a giant. The reason that we've broken out everything into kind of more granular steps is to make sure that people are supported in going through the process, right? So we're not just saying, go make something, but there's kind of a scaffolding to build on. And so that's why we have all those steps set out, and if you follow all these steps, you'll basically be pretty well guaranteed to meet the criteria. So as I was talking about as we were going through those stages, there are resources that we've made available for anybody who's interested in participating. There's a Google Drive that has all of those resources, all of the project canvases on there, has a briefing document, has an FAQ document that is currently empty because there have not yet been questions, but I'll be adding to it as people ask them. Submission checklists, and also that important template to fill out to make your final submission. We also have a Slack channel that you should join if you're participating. It's really, really, really important that at least one person from every team is on the Slack channel, because there will be important announcements and information going through that Slack channel throughout the course of the challenge. And finally, the last resource, of course, is coming here every Tuesday night and working together. We've really designed this, we think, so that it can be accomplished if you work on it no other time other than at Hacknights. And so take advantage of that time to work together with your team. Of course, you can work any other time, but why not? Here. So, like I said, if you and your team kind of go through those stages and fill out the template as we've set it up, you should be able to be meeting the criteria to share in the award. And those criteria are: is your work publicly available and licensed through Creative Commons and open source? Is initial user research documented, and is prototype testing documented? And like I said, if you fully answer all the questions in the template, you should have no problem meeting these criteria. of course, these last little things that are important to mention is that intellectual property will remain yours, but submissions and submissions should use, like I said, Creative Commons or open source. But Urban and Digital, Civic Tech Toronto, or ESDC, the federal government agency, may use portions of the submissions for publication and for research. Like I said, this is about sharing knowledge and building kind of a knowledge base about doing these sorts of things, so that's why that's really important. Did you have a question, Beth?
I'll wait till the end.
Okay. So if you want to participate, how do you do that? First, form a team. We'll have a breakout session during the breakout sessions tonight to help people do that. And there's no restrictions on team size. Check out the Google Drive that I've already mentioned. Join the challenge on Slack, or the channel on Slack. Review the template that will take you through all the questions to answer to make sure that you meet all the criteria. Do awesome stuff. Review the submission checklist, and then submit. So the submission date is 6 weeks from today at midnight. Well, a minute before midnight. And so from here until then, we'll be here every week, or either Dave or I will be here every week to help teams that are working here, and we'll be on Slack the entire time to help people through the process as well. And like I already mentioned, it's possible to do this challenge by just coming Tuesday nights working during Hacknights with your team. It sort of seems like it might seem like there's a lot of steps involved, but we've really designed it in such a way that I think it's pretty straightforward and easy to digest. And there'll be a lot of people here to answer any questions or help sort out problems that come up. So that's kind of the general spiel. I'll be doing a breakout session, like I said, afterwards to help people create teams, but I think we have some time to answer questions for now about either the idea behind this or kind of the logistics of how it will all work. Yeah.
So I understand this is a very broad problem, but I was wondering if there is a list of problems that the government is seeing that people can build solutions for. So without people going in and researching, they wouldn't know what the problems are. So is there like a problem list you have?
No is the short answer.
That's right.
No, and that's actually partially why I think that the initial research is really important, right? To make sure that you've framed the problem in a way that makes sense to somebody who is interacting with the problem all the time. But there is a pretty good accessible amount of, if you're interested in kind of Googling around or looking on both government or not government social service websites about to provide kind of further context about the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why 3,000?
I don't know. That's Dave, do you know the answer to that question? Why 3,000?
I mean, I don't know.
It's not. It's sponsored by the government, so I don't know how their budgeting process works.
I'm just saying, if you really want to get a bunch of people passionate about trying to create a solution, and you're indicating that you're spreading this money around, it seems odd for such a broad topic.
Yeah, I think that part of the answer to that is that this is really about learning and it's about doing it as an experiment. I think that maybe you're right. If they were looking to get kind of like ready to go projects, but this is really about learning about the process. And maybe who knows what will happen based on how this goes. But this is our first time doing this sort of thing. And so, yeah, it's sort of like a playground to figure out how this is going to work. Yeah.
So in that sense, like, what would be the outcome achieved? Is it just really more information in terms of how this process works, or like who you're for, like what's the outcome?
Like the learning outcomes. So government, ESDC, federal government is interested in, knows good work is happening in communities like this and really doesn't know what our process is, what civic tech really even looks like, how it works. And so they're hoping to learn more about the process that teams go through when they create projects here. And so this is kind of a way to help make that transparent. It's also a way to help us learn how to administer, challenges like this. So hopefully more of them will happen, and we'll have learned about that. So there's kind of two-way learning that's going on here. So it's really about setting the stage. Well, I hope setting the stage for more projects like this.
Is there more specificity on Creative Commons and open source licenses? Because some of them can be a little weird, like essentially saying someone could license it a way that it could never be the basis of a company, which I'm not sure is how. I don't know. There's just many ways that it could be used.
That's a great
Specificity might be.
FAQ topic. That will maybe be the inaugural FAQ. I'll share some
But
information.
just might need to be some direction on exact licenses because there's a whole lot of open source licenses.
Totally. Cool. Thanks. Maybe I'll pick your brain.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. If there are any questions, please go to the FAQ section. Yes?
Right. So yes, we'll be building the FAQ section. But if there are any questions after tonight, please post them on Slack. That's I think that's how we'll build an FAQ section.
Coolio.
So I see that there are more questions, and I think we'll have time in a breakout session to continue to talk about this. I don't want to take away time from other projects that might be going on. So thank you guys very much. I'm really excited about this project, and I hope to see a lot of you at the breakout session.